computer. So Vidya, how are you?
Fantastic, Jeremy. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for being on our 4th day of APAC judging this year. I just wanted to ask you, I suppose, first off the bat, what was your sense of experience from being the chair of today's jury?
You know, it was really, really nice. And I have to thank you and, all the organizers at the Festival of Media. I have been part of the jury before. This was my first experience as a chair, and it's really been an absolute privilege through the day and a great responsibility. I must say, I got into it, came into it a little nervous. Judging, I feel, is a little easier than what I thought my responsibilities as a chair would be, but it was really good. So, apart from obviously the chance to see great work, it is so good to hear the opinions of other respected peers in the industry. And you realize that even though we're all from the same marketing community, people have very, very diverse points of view based on where they're coming from and what their experiences are. And I really learned from that. Specific to the role of a chair, it was great for me to I was initially thinking if I should be a little more neutral, but there were times when just the passionate discussion got ahead of all of us, I think, and that I feel that really helped. I also felt that in some categories, in some discussions, I could help navigate the group to a fair conclusion. And there were categories where we felt the work was really good, perhaps deserved more than 3 prizes, and categories where it wasn't that good. And as a jury, as a group, I think we had to take some brave decisions today. But I'm glad for that, and it was a fantastic experience, really.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. And being privy to some of those conversations, you're right. The debate and the discussions were absolutely fantastic and really interesting to hear. And it was clear there was a passion from all of the jurors and yourself. So you touched on it very briefly there. In terms of the work, what did you think of the quality of work this year? And was there a fair geographical split of where the work came from across the region?
Definitely. So the quality of the work was fantastic, Jeremy. APAC is a very diverse region, not just geographically, but there's socioeconomic differences across the region. There's developed, developing markets. There's the brands at different stages of their life. So newer brands, well-established brands, local brands, multinational brands. So it's difficult to for often to measure up to that diversity. But I thought today's selection of the shortlisted campaigns did a wonderful job of that. So we saw all kinds of campaigns, and it's heartening, especially when you see smaller brands, ones that you might not have heard of, do fantastic marketing. So it was great. I thought it was a great representation of consumers in this region as well.
And on that, were there any key trends or insights that came across or came out of all the campaigns? I know that there were quite a few campaigns that had a cause or a purpose at their hearts, but was there anything else that you saw within the entries?
So a couple of things stood out for me. One was just the use of technology and digital, and maybe digital media is obviously everyone has to be there because that's where consumers are. But even, we have a category best use of digital media in technology, but I felt across categories, there was, brands have been thinking of smart ways to leverage technology to solve the brand's problem or the consumer's problem. So, that one stood out. But I think if I were to step back and really see overall what helped or what was really common among the winning executions, Jeremy, it would be, these executions in some way or the other made the brands useful to consumers or really, really interesting, to consumers. And I feel like that's a great framework to think about the future of advertising, really. So how can brands be more useful, solve a real problem? There's this concept called jobs to be done, which I saw a lot of the winning entries play very nice homage to. So it was good to see that.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. No, well, I like to hear that. And And in terms of the campaigns you saw, you talked about some of the brands that you weren't too familiar with. Was there one or two campaigns that you thought, crikey, that is amazing what they've done? There's some real work gone into that makes it very special.
So again, without giving anything away, there were a couple that really stood out for me. And, one, not just a Cadbury ad, right? I mean, we've seen that. In fact, I'd seen it a number of times, seen that case study, being shared and spoken about. And I think it's just phenomenal how Cadbury have built on that platform year after year. I think it's their second or third year in which they're doing and evolving that, really leveraging technologies to be a force for good and a force for growth for themselves. So it helps the world and it also helps their brand. So I thought that was an amazing example. The one I really loved and put such a huge smile to my face was the one from Australia, which was Share the Lamb. So fabulous, really, really Australian. And it was such an interesting approach to solve what was contextually a very, could have been a very big problem for Australians. So those two, I think I'll remember for a while.
I know that's great to hear. That's absolutely wonderful to hear. And I suppose our final question is, how or would you recommend this to fellow marketeers as an experience they should partake in, being a judge or a chair?
Absolutely, I would absolutely do that, and I think more and more people should do this. Actually, both definitely joining as part of the jury, also being the chair. It just gives you such an enormous perspective on what else is happening in the world around you. I feel today more than ever, people are getting so busy that you don't have time to look up from your work and see what's happening outside. And at one shot, you're able to see not just that breadth of work, but you're seeing really the top of that selection, right? Because you're seeing the short list and then you're selecting from that short list. So it's amazing. I know I'm going to be taking so much away for my brand teams to start working on, look at as inspiration. So definitely great experience in seeing the work, but also in developing connections. I remember I met Nandini, Dias the first time I judged at FOMA. And it was so good to see her again. And, we've been in touch through. And I hope to stay in touch with some of my fellow jurors from today as well. They bring so much of interesting perspective that I'd love to keep at.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Vidya. Wonderful, really insightful. And thank you once again for being a fantastic chair.
Thank you, Jeremy. The pleasure was fully mine.